Hi there, my name is Louis Taylor, I'm a composer, and today I'm going to be doing a video about my new modular synthesizer, which I've just started assembling into this lovely new rack here made by Racks UK, which are a really great company to get racks from. Just picked it up very, very recently. This is a hybrid custom model, it's really nice. I've got a bunch of outboard gear down in the sort of front facing area of it, as well as a custom Eurorack double rack area at the top here. So eventually this is all going to be filled up. There's also this nice sort of like extended desk space and on the top here, which is useful for all sorts of things. Just putting stuff on decoration. Also, eventually it might be nice to have another Eurorack case, sitting on the top here, so I can have like a kind of dual system going on just to extend the amount of modules that I'll get. That's a long way down the line yet because they're bloody expensive, but we'll get there eventually, hopefully. It's an expensive hobby, this Eurorack stuff, but it's very good fun, and hopefully it will lead me towards some more original synthesized music, which will be really fun. So today's video is specifically about this unit that I picked up recently, this module called Marbles, which is a random sampler, not sampling in the kind of like normal, Spitfire audio kind of sampling, like, Contact, all that kind of thing. Sampling in the sense of like, it's taking sounds from this synthesizer here, this oscillator, which an oscillator is basically a fancy word for something that makes a sound, and it takes that sound and kind of repurposes it, sequences it if you like, and outputs that randomly. So rather than a normal sequencer, or even like a MIDI keyboard, which is a type of sequencer I suppose, where you would choose the select pitches and timings and loudness, with the Marbles module it's all random, and there is a lot of sort of order that you can bring to it, but it is mostly a sort of random use, and it's generative, so it basically just goes on forever, creating random loops and patterns and melodies and stuff like that. And there's loads you can do with it, and I'm gonna jump into it and show you some things that I've done. Just to say though that I am quite new to this, and this is just me saying what I've found out about it so far. Please do not, take any of this as like Eurorack expert advice. I recommend quite a few channels for that, which I'll link in the description below. Also, if you're looking for some great Eurorack modules, I got most of these from Elevator Sounds, which is a Bristol-based store. And I think they're the only store in the UK that basically they've got a huge Eurorack setup in there. Bigger than Christian Henson's. It's like insane. They've got 3 different separate racks and all sorts of other stuff going on too. And you can go in there, try out all the modules together. They've got speakers. The staff are really friendly, and it's a great place to go and experiment and just buy from them, because they're a great little independent stop that provide amazing service. So I highly recommend them. I'm not affiliated or anything, I just think they're a great store. So let's jump right into the modules that I'm going to be showing you. Okay, so here I am at my Eurorack setup, and I'm going to give you a top-down view of the few modules that I do have. And we're going to be creating some very simple, random music, if that's what you could call it. And hopefully we'll explore some new things. So basically, just to give you a bit of an intro into this, this is something called a voltage-controlled oscillator, which is basically a very fancy word for, a synth, a very basic synthesizer that produces sound. you know, in essence, it's called an oscillator because it produces a wave, and it oscillates that wave, and those oscillations, those vibrations, cause it to produce a sound. So this is a Behringer oscillator, which is pretty good. I'm pretty happy with it. It has 3 different waves that it can produce. It can produce a triangle, a saw wave, and a pulse wave. And unfortunately, it can't do a sine wave. So I might look into getting another oscillator that can do that as well, and some other things. But the good thing about this Behringer one is that it has lots of modulating inputs. So that means basically that you can put lots of things into it that can manipulate and modulate the sound. And it also has a decent amount of outputs. And there's two completely separate oscillators. The only thing that they share in common is the power source. Everything else is completely separate, but you can actually sync them up, which can be quite useful, but you know, that's by the by. We can go into that later. This is something called a filter. This is a great filter by Carbon. There's lots of different features. Sorry, it's called Carbon. It's by WMD. There's lots of great features on here. So first of all, it's a filter. It's basically something that filters the sound, a certain amount of it. So you can basically choose a low pass filter, which basically sweeps off that top end and allows the low end to pass through. And there's a high pass filter which does the opposite. So you can filter out different sort of ends of the spectrum to manipulate the sound even further, which can be really useful. It's got an FM, which can allow you to modulate the oscillator really nicely. This is a resonance control right here. I'm not so sure what this does, to be honest, but it basically, I've noticed that it kind of like produces its own tones as you put it up really high, which can be a little bit painful, but it can actually act as its own oscillator, so that can be quite useful. Here you can switch between the different types of filter, and also the great thing about this is that it's got its own built-in saturation. So if you hold this button down, you can basically turn up or down the saturation, and it's a really nice sort of analog warmth that it gives it, and a bit of distortion. Now, this is the Mutable Instruments Marbles Random Sampler, which is this is going to be kind of the brains, as a sequencer would be. So as I was saying, it's basically sequencing the sounds from this and outputting them as different notes rather than just one note, and that can be controlled by a variety of different methods. So first of all, why don't we just show you what the oscillator does? So you simply put one in there and one in there, and there you go, there you have it. That is it's just producing a sound. That's currently the triangle wave, pulse wave, saw wave, pulse wave. This is the width of the oscillations, width of the frequency, change the pitch, fine tuning here. So let's just turn that down a little bit. Right, so what we want to do is I'm going to put this into the low pass filter. So that allows me to filter out the sound. So I'm going to grab another cable from over here, and I'm going to take I beg your pardon, I'm going to put that in the input, and then I'm going to take the output of the low pass filter, and I'm going to put this into the output of my audio interface here. There we go, so we've got a filter there, which is really nice. Just so you can hear a bit of the saturation. There you go. So that's really nice. Now, let's just keep it on this triangle wave for now because it's nice and soft. Now what we're going to do is we're going to take these outputs here. So there's two sides to this marbles thing. One side is a clock, and the other side, let's check the manual. and the other side is a voltage output, basically. So what we can do is we can take the output, so that basically the way it works is that there's 3 outputs per side of it, and the X2 and the T2 kind of control, they're like a middle ground between X1 and X3 and T1 and T3. So if I put it into X2, it's kind of like a mix of the both. So I'm just going to put that into the middle one, and there we go. We have a tone that's changing. So that's the first step. Now what I quite like to do is take the other outputs here, the other X outputs, and put them in their respective modulations inputs. So you have a complete modulation source from here that's sequencing properly. So that's the basic gist of this. So it's just literally creating random melodies, if you could call them melodies. That's kind of what's happening at the moment. So obviously it's not very musical right now, but there's a lot you can do. So let's just, don't jump out your seat just yet. Let's just move that over there. So the next thing we want to do is take what this is called the clock, the internal clock from Marbles. Now what you can do is actually take that, and a cool thing you can do is put it into the FM here. So that kind of controls when it's like completely cutting off the filter, I think. You can have a balance. Or none at all. This is the frequency, by the way. So it really just lets some of those the resonance. Lets those resonance shine through, which nothing wrong with a bit of that. So I can keep it halfway. Now, what I'm going to do now is turn down the rate here. So that basically is the tempo. It changes the BPM. Apparently 12 o'clock is 120 BPM, although it feels very slow for that. So maybe it's like one note every like half a bar or something like that. Deja vu is an interesting option. It basically controls whether or not it's looping a certain sequence of notes that it selects from the random sequence of notes. And that can either be applied via these buttons to the T section or the X section, or both, or neither. So if I turn these off, it's now affecting neither. So it will just continue to do random stuff. But if I turn them both back on, it will loop a section. So if I turn this down, you'll hear it onto the length section. This is how many steps there are to the sequence. So it's currently 2, so you can just hear them. Ba, ba. See, if I turn it up to 3. So when you turn the rate up, you can really hear. Jitter is basically the humanization, so it's whether it's straight or like complete chaos, basically. Doesn't know what's going on there. It's quite nice to have it in the middle somewhere. I quite like this little loop that it's chosen, so I'm going to leave it on this for now. Now, the steps is basically what scale it's choosing. So you can put it right onto this end or right onto this end or anywhere in between. And basically from 12 o'clock to, let's say this is like 5 o'clock, I don't know. There's a few steps in between there, which basically means chromatic scale, like, the melodic scale, and then there's pentatonic, and then there's like the octaves and the fifths, and then there's just the octaves. So if I put it, that's just the octaves now. So now we're back to that kind of like pentatonic types thing. Now you can spread the range of the notes too. There's all sorts you can do here. I don't want to go into too much detail because there's a lot of great tutorials out there. I just want to show you how to create some basic generative music with a very simple setup here. So let's turn this rate down. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to change this to the pulse wave. Right, so I'm going to apply some saturation here. Now, one thing that you can do to make this instantly more musical is apply some effects. So obviously I don't have any in my Eurorack setup currently, but what you can do is I've got this output here from IntelliGel IO, which is a great module, by the way. You can take this output. This is going through here into my patch bay, which is then going into my audio interface, which is Focusrite 18i20. So it's going into Logic, which I'm screen recording just over here, which I can show you. Now I've got this very simple, just one track, and I've got some plugins preset that I loaded earlier, and we can see how it makes it just sound so much better. Because the thing is with the synthesizer is that because it's just pure electronic tones that are being produced, it's very unnatural and therefore unmusical. So you kind of need to add reverb a lot of the time to make it seem realistic and human and like it's actually being produced in the world, because there's nothing that's this dry in the entire world except for those silent rooms where you can hear your own heartbeat, and they're very rare. So adding a little bit of reverb really helps. Really brings it some depth and some kind of spookiness. So let's just turn that rate down a bit more. I'm going to turn that jitter up. Rate down a little bit. FM down. Let's put it back on the triangle wave and see. Let's add some more plugins. So I've got here, let's see. So I've got some delay. I'll get these up on my screen as well so that you can see which ones I'm using. I'm using Panagement. It's 2 by Auburn Sounds, which is a really fantastic convolution type reverb, I believe. I've got this replica delay by Native Instruments. I'm applying some phases by Native Instruments, which is really cool. And finally, which is just really adds some lovely warmth and distortion to it, just like the saturation from WMD, but it's a lot more extreme, is the saturation from Wave's Abbey Road Saturator. So like I said, I preset these up, and now I'm basically just going to have a play around so you can see the sort of different things you can do, and you can get a feel for how it sounds. So I'm just going to dive straight into this, and I hope you've enjoyed this little video about these really great modules, and I hope that anyone who's interested in getting into the Eurorack adventure does, because it's been so worth it for me, and I've only got 3 modules at the moment, and hopefully the more we'll get, it'll be even better, and I hope you can join me for the ride. So thanks so much for watching, and I'll see you next time. Here is my little jam.